Today I'm reviewing the debut season of Codename Kids Next Door. Kids Next Door was created by Tom Warburton, but it originally started out as something completely different. The Kids Next Door were originally just side characters in another show he was working on, titled Kenny and the Chimp. The Kids Next Door were planned to be recurring characters who would always get Kenny into trouble. Eventually this idea slowly morphed into a show that completely focused on the Kids Next Door, something I'm extremely grateful for. On July 20, 2001, the pilot episode No Pee in the Ool aired as part of a Cartoon Network viewers poll, which it won, and as a result the series was greenlit. I'm not sure how legit this poll was, but it does seem like a smart idea to have your audience actually decide what shows you put into production, seeing as they're the ones who are actually watching the content. Season 1 first aired on December 6, 2002, a little over a year after the pilot was shown. Critical reception for the series appears to be mostly positive, holding a 7.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb. However, I never spent too much time watching the series as a kid, so it'll be interesting to see how it holds up. Having now watched this as an adult, Codename Kids Next Door is actually pretty damn good, especially for a first season. It's filled to the brim with creativity and imagination, which makes it incredibly endearing. Everything from their treehouse headquarters to the crazy slap-together weapons they create perfectly capture the runaway imaginations of children at that age. Even watching this show and being older than the target audience, it's still able to captivate me, and I'm able to get lost in a child's world for 22 minutes. The awesome cast of villains also helps this sense of wonder and imagination.
I am the brush, and you are the black.
Each villain is essentially based on a childhood fear, and every single villain feels unique and brings something else to the table. The Toiletnator, Sticky Beard, the delightful children from down the lane, Mr. Wink and Mr. Fib, and Common Cold are all awesome in their own ways. Having pretty much all the villains be literal representations of something kids fear, like the dentist, makes it feel like these kids are just playing around in a make-believe world. I also enjoyed that in one episode you get a little peek into Mr. Wink and Mr. Fib's backstory, which gives them greater depth as villains. Hopefully a few other villains can receive this treatment as the series progresses. Villains also have some crazy as heck plans, either to destroy the kids next door, or to make life worse for kids. One example of this is in the episode where number 4 is taken to work for Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, and has to foil a plot where the evil Mr. Boss is planning on sending all the girls to Pluto, so their parents won't have to worry about them, and can work greater hours. This crazy fucker actually attempts to put children on a rocket and send them to another planet. That is intense.
We are the kids next door!
Codename Kids Next Door premieres Friday, December 6th at 7 and 10 on Cartoon Network.
Either you're in or you're old.
While watching the show, I got a strong Powerpuff Girls vibe. The whole premise of a team of kids saving the day from evil villains is reminiscent of the Powerpuff Girls, and both have a very unique and vast roster of villains. The kids next door often feel like a superhero team, particularly with the gadgets they come up with that for some reason often involve cheese. Oh, and the clam cannon is the most dope weapon in the history of weapons. The series is also very heavy on parodies, something that can be seen in Operation Lice, which is a full episode parody of aliens, with Lice taking on the role of xenomorphs and the kids next door becoming the Marines. This is something I never would have picked up on as a kid, but watching it now that I'm older makes me appreciate so many little things the show cleverly did. There's also a surprising amount of adult jokes snuck in, particularly in the Operation Point episode. Teenagers keep going off to the point in this episode, which makes the kids next door suspect they are joining forces with the adults. Throughout the entire episode, it's heavily implied they go up there to have sex, and there are some pretty explicit jokes about this that would fly straight over a child's head.
So, what are you and Meg doing Friday night?
Oh, not much. Just going up to the point.
Cool, I'm going too.
I'm really not sure how some of these jokes got past censors. By the end of the episode, it turns out they were just going up to the point to roller skate, so I guess they got away with it by pretty clearly showing that nothing adult was going on. They also get experimental with one episode titled The Fly. There is not a single word of dialogue spoken in this episode, with the story instead being purely told through the music and the visuals. As a kid, I probably would have thought this episode was boring and would have never watched it, but as an adult, I thought this was a neat little premise, and apparently each season has one experimental episode, so I look forward to seeing each new spin on the show in these future episodes.
Do it! You have a mission this Halloween. Take part in Trick or Treat for UNICEF and help collect money for kids worldwide who are truly in need. Ask your teacher how your class can raise money and get involved in the cause. To get the orange box, call 1-800-4UNICEF or log on to unicefusa.org. Cartoon Network and Time Warner Cable are proud supporters of Trick or Treat for UNICEF.
Kids Next Door, move out!
And when you pick up the Kids Next Door DVD, a portion of the proceeds will benefit UNICEF. In stores October 26th.
The episodes are split into two 11-minute segments, except for the final episode of the season. This episode has the kids next door fighting against their arch nemesis, the Delightful Children, and sees them face off against Father for the first time. Using the full 22 minutes for this episode works extremely well, as so much happens and it never feels like they are trying to fill time to stretch the episode out. The episode sees number 1 get turned into an adult, as well as the kids next door treehouse being completely destroyed, so they definitely had enough plot to work with. Father is genuinely terrifying in this episode, and I can't wait to see what they do with him in future appearances. Hopefully he's used sparingly to keep the mystique around him. While I enjoyed the vast majority of Codename Kids Next Door Season 1, there were a few minor problems I had. While the show doesn't exactly suffer because of this, it is a little disappointing that the first season is just a tiny 13 episodes long. Having each episode be 2 segments does give it a slight feeling of being longer, but ultimately I could have done with another 5 episodes or so. I initially marked this down as Cartoon Network not ordering too many episodes for the first season, just in case the show turned out to be a flop. However, looking up the episode list on Wikipedia shows that every season consists of 13 episodes, which is disappointing. But hey, at least it won't overstay its welcome like a certain Mobile Suit series. I was also slightly annoyed that some episodes ended on cliffhangers, but were literally never addressed ever again. In the Arctic episode, it's revealed Professor Triple Extra Large isn't actually the villain, and somebody else is about to unleash a plan of destruction. However, we never get a conclusion to this. The same thing applies to the Fly episode, where it turns out the Fly was actually a device used to spy on the kids next door by the Delightful Children. I suppose this doesn't really need to be followed up on, but it would have been cool if they got some important piece of information from this spying and then used it against them later. I think the thing I disliked most was the inclusion of the Kenny and the Chimp short in the first episode. The pilot episode is short, so they did need to fill for time, but the Kenny and the Chimp short just sucks and runs for way too long. I just wanted to watch some Codename Kids Next Door, so when I was presented with this short about a stupid kid and his stupid monkey, I wasn't happy. I get that it was included because of its ties to the Kids Next Door being created, but there is a reason Kids Next Door got picked up and Kenny and the Chimp didn't.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Codename Kids Next Door. Coming to Cartoon Fridays beginning December 6th, only on Cartoon Network.
Hang on to your underwear.
For the first season of a series, Codename Kids Next Door is great. It's chock full of humour, clever parody, imagination, and an amazing cast of villains. Codename Kids Next Door definitely holds up in 2016, and I can't wait to dive into future seasons to see how they build upon and improve the foundations they set here.